and led me to the ethos of Fearvana, which is that fear and nirvana, two seemingly contradictory ideas, are framed as opposites, but they are in fact very complementary. And suffering is not the antithesis of bliss. Fear is not the antithesis of nirvana. They can actually coexist, and I believe they must coexist.
But I think before I found the book, my understanding was like, we're here to be experiencing love all the time. So we want to strive to like be so full of love and gratitude, and like that's our experience. And so like anytime there was fear, it was like, I don't want to experience that. Like I want to be in the space of love. And then I read your book and I, looked at my life and I was like, the journey to love is through fear. And that was kind of like the light bulb for me. So I think, talk to me about when you were facing those fears, whether you're walking out in front of your infantry, or you're climbing a mountain, or you're skydiving. When you're facing those fears, on the other side of that, what is the experience in your nervous system, in your emotions? What happens when you get so consumed by those fears that you can release them?
Great question. I mean, on the other side, I think is the like, it's through the fears that we find what is, I mean, you can call it nirvana, but fearvana is the idea, right? The state of pure bliss. Like a simple analogy is like the fear before jumping out of a plane and the pure bliss once you actually leap when you're skydiving, right? Mm-hmm. I've done that, and I've experienced the terrifying fear, but through all of it, whether it be mountain climbing or walking in Iraq, the power of fear in intense experiences, is that it brings you so in the now. It narrows your focus, and I go deep into research about that in the book, as you've read, but it narrows your focus, and it brings you so present to the experience of life in the moment, right? And so that's one of the draws to extreme, quote unquote, extreme sports, is that they demand you to get into that, what one would arguably call the flow state. And I say arguably because there's many differences into flow and Fearvana that I talk about. But it is kind of the flow state, and it forces you to be in the now in a level that the mundane cannot, and you can obviously consciously practice it, which I do now, embracing the mundane. And so it's all the duality. It's not one or the other. But without that, I mean, life should not be a static line. Otherwise, what's the meaning? We kind of are taught to believe that it should be, right? We should be happy all the time. Yes. Like you said, we believe that that's constant state of love, constant happiness. But if we live in a state of constant happiness, that's the norm, then happiness is no longer happiness. Mm-hmm. That's just is, right? But it's sadness that allows us to truly appreciate happiness. And so the idea is, only into going through fear can you truly understand everything on the other side of it as well. And you have to do something you've never done before to get something you've never done before. And next, get something you've never had before. And to do something you've never done before, it means being fearful. Because the brain's response to fear is that, like when the brain shows fear, it's that it's a perceived risk, real or perceived. And that's the normal response, is fear. It's not negative, it just is. It's a natural human response to the unknown, to threats, right? So it's very, and the big beef that I had with so much, like you said, in the personal development world, is that people say there's only two ways of being: fear and love. And that it often, what does that do? It frames fear as the enemy of love. But like I always like to say, that fear is an expression of love, not the enemy of love.